Hi guys, welcome back to the Earthy Delights podcast. This week we have Jim's good friend Darragh Potts to talk about hair loss, something that is very dear to my heart and my head. Darragh was an amazing guest, to be honest. He answered all my questions, which was a great thing for me personally, and I'm sure there's a lot of you listening who have similar questions. Or if you're lucky enough and you've got a full head of hair, then why are you listening to this? You don't need to be wasting your hour. You're already a lucky bastard. But no, Darragh was amazing. He had a he had a great level of humility and humor, which was needed, I think, and I appreciated it for sure. So, for anyone who has any insecurities or worries about their hair loss, or know anybody who does, then please listen to this podcast because I think it will help you clear up all of those doubts and worries that you may have, and it might be the push you need to get that hair transplant or not be the case, whichever you're more comfortable with. At the end of the day, that's what Dara's all about. But yeah, enjoy this podcast. I really did. He's a great guest, and I thank Jim for getting him on here. Really, really top stuff. So without further ado, here is Darragh Potts.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Earthly Delights podcast. This week, we have a very special guest, an old friend of mine, Darragh Potts. How are you keeping?
Not too bad, Jim. How are you?
You know what? It's been a tough week, Darragh. If I'd be lying to you if I told you if it was smooth, but I'm happy we're here. I'm happy we're going to have this interesting conversation. I know it's going to be helpful for everyone involved, so I'm looking forward to it. Bit of information for the average listener here. I guess obviously you'll know from the title of the podcast what we're going to be discussing, but I reached out to Darragh because Darragh's an old friend of mine, and I recently heard that he got a hair transplant. And this was on my mind because I've actually had several friends that have got a hair transplant, but Darragh's just so damn charismatic that I had to ask him that. but Seb and myself were also talking, and Seb recently told me that he was thinking about getting a hair transplant. And then I just thought, Jesus, this is something that I don't really hear men talking about, and it's clearly on the consciousness, like it's clearly in people's heads. And I want to say this just before I forget, and then we can get chatting. I have a friend who's a salon owner, and he says, I think his quote was, every bloke over 18 has a hairline insecurity.
Yeah.
Like as in everybody over 18 that's going to his hair will probably just go, what do you think there? Do you think I'm okay? Or do you think I should do this? Do you think I should do that?
Yeah.
And I guess like part of the aim of this podcast is to hear about your experience there, but also to wonder like what influence social media is having on our insecurities, and like are we always going to try to quote unquote fix things that are like fix our flaws or fix our imperfections, rather than trying to like reach a place where we can accept them and move on. But I guess Seb,
Yeah.
you want to get going?
Yeah, I mean, the first question that obviously we spoke about this just before recording, but like I was saying to you that I probably where I can remember my own insecurities coming into place was around like 17 there or thereabouts, like just kind of like the last year of school, maybe first year of uni is where I started to notice my own and like get those insecurities that that Jim's barber was talking about. And then from 18 onwards I've been using Regain, which I was kind of ashamed to say, like I wouldn't tell people unless I was kind of forced into a situation. Now I'm more than happy to tell people that I use Regain and I use finasteride. But so that's been like 7 years now. 7 years that I've been using those two products. Well, 7 years Regain and the last year of finasteride. And it just got to the point where I was thinking, man, if I like just even saved all of that money that I'd used on those products for those 7 years, it would have probably have paid for the hair transplant itself anyway. And I was wondering when was like the first time that like you noticed or became aware of like your hairline, and then it started to become like an insecurity for you.
So I definitely say my early 20s, so about 22, 23, I started noticing it. My biggest problem wasn't my hairline, which I didn't kind of realize until the day I went to get my hair transplant, but I'll talk about that after. it was actually the back, so the penno spot or the copper dollar or whatever it's called. Um, that was where I was thinning worst, and it was something I noticed myself, and then it wasn't probably for another year or two that other people started noticing it. So I had the insecurity myself first, and I didn't talk about it. It didn't bother me so much because I couldn't see it. See, that's what's very different to like your hairline. Seb, you said you've been seeing it since you were 17. I could have been losing my hair for a year before that, and I didn't notice it. You know, and I'm quite fair. My hair's quite fair, so it's not like it's thick and it's dark and it covers it. It was visible from the second I started noticing it, and the second I started noticing it, it was always there, and it was like it was always in the room with me. You know, and that's something as well that like it's very much a part of your identity then, especially in like especially with like friends and like close safe circles, because it's an easy target and it's a bit of fun. And I wouldn't change that either. That's something as well I do want to mention about like being in groups of friends and socializing and meet new people. And it's something that I think a lot of people do is they point it out first. It's the joke, you know, it's the insecure joke. It's like, if it's whatever the insecurity is, if you've something you can change, if it's like if it's an appearance thing like that, people do turn around and make that joke. If it's glasses, if it's hairlines, what it is, you know what I mean, it's a joke. But I kind of struggled with hair loss, which was how I put it. I struggled with hair loss for maybe three or 4 years, and now I've dealt with hair loss for a year, I'd say. That's the kind of two sides of it. You struggle with it and then you deal with it, and once you deal with it, it's a very different experience. You know, you kind of take the power back. As something like that. You know, it's something you can't control for so long. And then when you realize that you can control it with something like a hair transplant, or shaving your head, or actually just being able to deal with it or accept it, and it doesn't bother you. Like, I know a lot of people who've balded very gracefully, and like, say I balded gracefully 4 days a week, and then I struggled with balding 3 days a week. You know, it was very topsy-turvy for a long time. But yeah, so early 20s started with struggled with it all the way up until the day I got my hair transplant, I guess.
Yeah. Did you, when you like first found out and like noticed it yourself, also I'm not saying like that specific day, but kind of at the early onset of when you noticed it and became aware, did you kind of always have it in your mind like, oh, this is something I'm gonna quote unquote get fixed, or did the decision to get the hair transplant, did that take some getting used to in your own mind to be like, okay, I'm actually gonna like save money and actually like go through this whole process and actually do it? Or did you kind of start out thinking, oh, like it's fine, like you said, there's a lot of people who kind of bald gracefully, I'll just be one of those guys, it's no beef, and then as that kind of and then as that became reality, you actually like, yeah, I'm not with the bowl game, I want to keep these locks, so then started to looking at measures.
Yeah, so like, it's not an easy decision. It's not an easy, like, I don't mind talking about the money side of it either. I think that's really important part of the conversation, because it's a big investment. Like, I paid for the procedure itself, I paid €5,000 on the book. Okay. Either side of that €5,000, I've spent hundreds more, maybe thousands more. Yeah. And that's something that, as you said, you've been using Regain for 7 years. Yeah. I know Regain's not cheap. I use it now, and I only use it post transplant. So, like, you've $5,000 for the procedure, and as you said, if you save that money up, do you just pay for the transplant? I got lucky because I did it in the middle of a global pandemic, 9 months after I was supposed to move away, and had done all my savings. Okay. You know, so like, I just nipped into my move abroad savings, had a bit of self-love in the middle of a global crisis, and I thought, this is the best time to do it, because I can recover in peace. No one will see it. Yeah. And I thought when I got it done, I remember like telling my friends when I was getting it done, I was like, do I tell them? Do I not tell them? Because you kind of have that insecurity, the shame, are people going to laugh at me? Yeah. You know? But I remember when I told them I got it done, that was a nice day as well. Then you make the decision, you go and do it, you spend all the money, and I think your question was, when I noticed the first, was it something I was thinking about getting fixed? No, I thought I'd get longer out of my losing my hair.
Okay.
You know, like I
Yeah.
think the first couple of times I noticed it was maybe photographs where I'm in the background, and you're like, am I thinning, or is that bad lighting? And then maybe CCTV. Do you know the shops you walk in, you've CCTV above you, and you can
Yeah,
see
yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be like, and I was like, is that my head, or is that like bad lighting? And you'd probably stop. You might look like a lunatic because you're standing in this entrance to the store, throwing your head around, looking at a screen.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. Like, so then it's every weekend you're looking at photos. Then it's
Yeah, man.
every time you walk past CCTV. Then it's can you see it from the front in a mirror?
Yeah.
You know, and then you start taking pictures of it. This is what I started doing. I started taking pictures of the back of my head.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh God, it's gotten really bad. And then I'd compare it to pictures I took 6 months ago. I was like, is it worse? Is it the same? Have I lost all the hair I'm going to lose? Am I losing more hair? So like that went on from time I was 22, 23, all the way up until I was 25, 26 when I got this done.
Right.
26. I was 26 January this year. I got it done.
Okay.
And Darragh,
Yeah, man, that's a really. Sorry, Jim. Just quickly, that's a really important. You raised a point there, and it's one of my big bugbears. And I know that if I went to a clinic, they could just answer the question for me straight away. But it's one of those ones that's like, oh fuck. But if I actually go to a clinic, then it's like, even though you're not, but it feels like that's a big step. And even if you're not signing on the dotted line to get it done, even if you're just going to ask questions and stuff, it feels like the next step in what is an inevitable kind of finality there. But the point you made was, have I lost all the hair I'm gonna lose? And like that's the question that I have in my head, which is like, should I maybe stop using finasteride and regain, quote unquote, lose all the hair I'm gonna lose, so that then I can, when I get my transplant, you kind of get all your money's worth, rather than, because like I say about my hair, some people go, oh, but your hair's fine, I can't even like, I wouldn't even think that you're like receding or anything. I'm like, listen, very nice of you, but I can tell. But I do think like, oh yeah, but if I got my hair done now at the state it is right now, like guys, if you're watching on YouTube, then you can see, like, you can see there where it comes in. But then I'm thinking, yeah, but maybe like this stuff in the next 5 to 10 years, that might all get lost, and then I've got to go back again. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, fuck. And I know that I could just take that step and ask a clinic, but whilst you're here, I wondered if like you kind of had those questions.
Yeah, and you know what? I think I thought about that kind of too late. Not in a bad way. Again, I just didn't. This wasn't a question that came across me. I was like, oh, if I get a hair transplant, and then I lose the rest of my hair, that wasn't something that came to my mind until I sat down in the chair and started talking to somebody. So I'd recommend to anyone who's thinking about it, ask the question. Ask your mates. Ask people who've had it done. Ask your family what they think. But go and ask someone who does it for a living. Like, go and talk to somebody who does hair transplants, or talk to your GP and get them to refer you. Because the questions you look up online, YouTube, Reddit, where I spent countless hours, just don't answer the questions you need answered. Yes, I think the answer to your question is, if you get a new hairline put in and then you continue to lose the rest of your hairline will stay there, and you'll end up looking like Ronaldo in 2002. Korea, Japan.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's everyone's concern. But now, in fairness, I got my hairline brought in, and you can still see it there. You can still see, like, I have the eggs there. No, but you can't see in the quality of the camera and the lighting. But I do have hair here. When I got it done, I was talking to a guy in work, and he was like, God, you've got a hairline like Drake. It's so clean and crisp. Because they put in like 4,000 hairs. But then some of them don't take.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Every single hair they put in does not take.
Yeah.
But there's fallbacks to say if it's less than 60%, you can come in, rediscussion, all that sort of stuff. So you've backup options, but like, they tell you different reasons why you're going to lose your hair. They tell you why you might be losing your hair. They say, what's it like genetically in your family? I'm like, well, on my mother's side, my grandfather was very thin, but I only knew him in his 70s, so like, was that just an old man who lost all his hair? Whereas on my dad's side, his dad had all his hair, my dad has all his hair. And then you have to ask your question, am I the milkman's? You know what I mean? Where's the genetic line come through here? Like, that's also a running joke in my family, that I am the milkman's, because I look more like the milkman with my fair hair and balding head than I do my own father. So like, there's loads of different reasons why you can lose your hair. So the only person that's going to answer is a specialist or
Yeah, man.
someone who can relate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So go find out why
Yeah.
you're losing it. Find out your options.
And
Like, and do you know what? I'm going to say to you, Seb, something that has been said to me. You look like you have a great head of hair, but I know you don't feel that way.
Yeah. Not like
There's a
it's
very big difference, you know?
Do you know, yeah, that is, and it's a huge difference. And I've said this to Jim, and I said this to a few other people who I'm really kind of open with about like my insecurity with my hair. Is like this is how I know it's a big deal in my own head. When I meet a new bloke, be that or even just like I'm in a restaurant and like a guy walks in, goes to sit down at a table. The first thing I notice about that bloke, the first thing is his head of hair. It's the first thing I noticed. I couldn't tell you his eye colour. I couldn't tell you if he's tall or short. But I can tell you if I envy his hair or not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's if I get like obviously I live in Madrid. It's hot a lot of the time. So if I get sweaty, and then my hair obviously gets wet, it's the first thing I think of. I don't think of I'm sweating. It's not good look to sweat. It probably doesn't smell very nice. I don't think of any of that shit. I just think fuck. I'm sweating, and I know for a fact that my hair will be getting thinner than what it already is anyway. So I already have like a little shuffle, like I do that, and it kind of like, do you know what I mean? It masks the thinness and all this shit, and it's stuff like that where it's like, as many people can tell you, oh, your hair looks fine. I wouldn't have even noticed if you didn't say anything or whatever. It's like those things are the things that like I would love to have enough security in my own hair, not to notice a man's hair the first time I see them. Do you know what I mean?
And I tell you now, I didn't get that feeling that I don't notice a man's. I know exactly that feeling. Every man I walk past, I said, God, God, he's a great head of hair.
Yeah.
And then you see a fella who's not got, who looks like they're losing their hair, and you go, God, I'd say he feels the same way I feel.
Yeah.
Or you might see someone who's balding gracefully, as I put it, which is this imaginary feeling that I thought existed because a lot of people will suffer with insecurities. But I'd look at him and I go, God, I envy the fact that he can bald gracefully. You know? Then I got a hair transplant. That feeling didn't go away until about 5 weeks ago when I shaved my head.
Really?
I tell you now, just because you've brought it up, I haven't consciously noticed another man's head of hair.
Wow. And so, Darragh, can I ask, when you say I envy that man who has the ability to bald gracefully, that's not about how his hair looks. That's about how you believe how he's interpreting the hair loss or accepting the hair loss. Yeah.
Yeah, it's how I interpret he's interpreting his hair loss. Yeah. So like, it's how you carry yourself. Like, I would spend every single day from like mid-secondary school, I woke up in the morning and I washed my hair, I dried it, and I made sure that it looked perfect, and I was happy with it before I left the house. If I had a 6 a.m. flight, I'd get up half an hour earlier just to wash or just to make sure my hair was okay. This goes as far back as I can remember.
Wow.
I would, if I was caught short, I was running late, I would be extra late, because if I was out playing football, my hair was sweaty. Like you said, if you do the shuffle, you think you're all right, I would be extra late because I had to sort out my hair.
Yeah, man.
You know, that goes back to teenage years. Now I don't know if that's related to just general insecurities and how you look and you feel. And I remember like when we were in school, hair was a big thing. There was mullets, there was hair straighteners, there was spikes, there was all sorts. So like,
V's.
I suppose hair insecurity's always been there. V's. Oh, I got my first V when I was 17. My mum and dad wouldn't let me get when I was small. I swear to God. I finished school. I went straight to the barber. I grown my hair. I got a V. It was disgusting. It was so long.
Seb, do you know what a V is?
But I was just gonna ask. I think for the English listeners or international listeners, I think we might need a description here.
A V haircut is kind of like a mullet, but it's like tapered in at the back of your head.
Yeah.
Right.
You know? So you know the way the mullet they kind of shave up to the back.
Yeah.
This goes all the way down the back of the head, and the back of your head looks like a V shape. Don't know where it came from, but it happened, and it hit hard.
Really?
Oh,
It was everywhere in Dublin.
I know the mullet's coming back in. You know, the mullet's back in. I've seen a good few people with mullets, and I'm not even gonna. Like, I would never rock it, even if I had a great hairline. But like, I used to think, the mullet is like probably one of the worst haircuts in the history.
Nah.
And I'm not gonna lie, you see some people pull it off, and you go, you know what? Like, it takes a certain type of person but it suits them, and you go, that is fucking. I have to respect that.
Seb, I'm going to hit you with a hard truth here again. Mullets now are very mullets of the 80s. They're like permed,
Yeah,
thick,
yeah, yeah,
full-bodied,
yeah.
business in the front, party in the back. Mullets in Dublin in the noughties were gelled down, like stuck to the head, hair straightened out, dip dyed
Yeah.
red, blue, peroxide blonde, and of
Uh,
course you had those silly spikes at the back with the hair out front.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's what mullets were,
I
and
mean,
that's what I wanted as a kid. And ever so grateful to my parents that it was a stark no.
Yeah, I was gonna say, aren't you grateful now, man? I always remember one of my like early memories as a child when it comes to hair is my dad. He would always give me like the comb over before we'd go out
Mm-hmm.
anywhere, and oh my god, he would like. It felt like he was trying to press the brush into my actual cranium. He would just do it so hard. And like, fuck me. But he'd always, like, one of the weird compliments I remember my dad giving me from when I was young was like, oh, you have such a nice cowlick. And I was like, what the fuck's a cow? And I used to genuinely think that, like, a cow licked my head when I was a young child, and, like, that's why my hair would like go in this quiff thing. And he was like, oh, but he used to love that. And it's one of these like my early hair memories was how my dad used to like love my cowlick. Weird thing, but man, it's interesting as well because Jim, when I first told Jim about like having or thinking about potentially getting a hair transplant, obviously any listener to the podcast knows that Jim's all about holistic healing and whatnot. And the first comment out of Jim's mouth was like, oh man, but don't you think like it would kind of be better or maybe more worthwhile to kind of deal with that insecurity rather than like kind of, you know, go down the route of getting a hair transplant? And I completely understand where Jim's coming from. But what I find really interesting, and this isn't a slight on Jim, but it's just in general, I know a lot of girls my age, friends of mine, who have got boob jobs. And I think like all power to them. They obviously had like some sort of insecurity. They're too big, they're too small, they didn't like the shape, whatever. And they've gone and they've paid and they've got them fixed, and now they're absolutely happy with them, and that's great. And they know that they have to renew them every 5 years, you know, and all the rest of it. But like now, I know that boobs job back in the like 90s and stuff maybe was kind of seen a bit weird, but nowadays it's really accepted. And you've got girls now that get lip fillers and all of this jazz, and it's very accepted. No one kind of, but yet with the hair transplant with guys, it kind of feels like how boob jobs were seen, like in the 90s or the early noughties, where it was like kind of faux pas, kind of like oh, and that's why I think when you were saying like oh, should I tell my friends and stuff? Because it's like it does feel almost shameful to be like, oh, I actually got a hair transplant.
Yeah,
you know?
I get that.
Even,
I think obviously from people I know now, and maybe up until even before, long before I got it done, I don't think there's as much stigma around it. Maybe it's just here, maybe it's Dublin, maybe it's my age bracket, maybe it's the social circles I hang around in. I don't think there's that much of a stigma around it.
yeah,
I think, and definitely not like you look like one of the best hair transplants I have ever seen. Steve Carell in The Office.
yeah, man,
Like
incredible.
season 1, he looked like he wasn't getting a contract for season 2. You know what I mean? Look at him now. The man is an absolute Adonis. He's such a dilf. In the rest of those seasons, sweet Christ, Steve Carell being a daddy is a disgrace. Like to come from where he came from, 40-year-old virgin, to where he is now. Like you watch him in the that show, the morning show.
Yeah,
How you doing?
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like good looking man. And do you know what it is? It's a head of hair. For Steve Carell, it's a head of hair.
Matthew McConaughey. He's had his hair.
Have you read his book?
People don't realise. Man, I haven't read his book, but I know pretty much. Like if it came up on Pub Quiz as a genre, like celebrity hair transplants, I would probably get 90% correct because I've gone through and I've seen the examples. Like people don't like David Beckham. He's had a hair transplant.
I think he's had 2
People
or 3.
don't realise. Yeah, and it's like, do you know what I mean? And I feel like because they don't realise and they kind of feel like these guys have just had like this amazing head of hair the whole time. But yet with someone like, you know, the normal folk, quote unquote, you go in one day in the office in your own office, not the set of the
Yeah,
office,
yeah, yeah.
and you haven't got a head of hair, and then the next day you walk in and you're already like you got prepared, like all prepared for your V cut
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
next weekend. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, what's happened here? And it kind of just feels like this weird thing, but
Right.
it's a weird one because, like Jim said in the barber, everyone, or not everyone, but most blokes have some thought at least, even if they've like, I would say Jim's hair. Like, if I got that out of my hair transplant, I'd fucking go back to the guy and pay him double.
Yeah.
That is a tip. But, like, I'm sure that even Jim has, like, maybe combed it one way or whatever and gone, oh, actually, no, let me comb it a different way.
Yeah. But like
Yeah,
Jim,
yeah,
on
exactly,
top
like-
of having a good head of hair, and I stress
Yeah, he's got a
this.
beard.
This is something I used to stress very strong. Jim's a good hairstyle.
Yeah.
I would scorn men because they'd have an unbelievable head of hair. They'd have growth at the front, at the back. They'd have a hairline, and they'd have a shit haircut. And I'd turn
Yeah.
around to like whoever's. If I was in the car, I'd be like, "That's." Can I curse on this podcast?
Yeah, yeah, of course,
That's a
yeah.
fucking disgrace. That's a waste. That is a waste.
What a
That's,
waste of talent.
that's like putting the shower on before letting it heat up before you get in. That's a fucking
Yeah.
waste.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. Man, I know what you mean. I do. I know what you mean because I've thought it like so many times, and I feel like we all or most blokes think that stuff, but we don't actually like the only times I've really had conversations about the hair, like I said within the friendship group, the majority of the time it's just taking the piss out of yourself before your friends can get in there.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Just
I've
like,
a-
oh man,
I've
yeah,
a lot to
I
say
left my
about that.
hairline. I left my hairline, do you know what I mean, back home before I came out here to the pub. Sorry, boys. So then you're like, right, it's out in the open.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
all established my hairline's fucked. Right now, let's go. Do you know what I mean? But it was never, like, no one's ever really gone and gone, man, do any of you lot, like, when, like, people walk into the pub, do any of you lot also notice their hair? Or is that just, am I just like a weird guy? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know, I just feel like it's a taboo subject, which is really silly just because how so many people kind of all feel the same about it.
Yeah, I kind of... So, just quickly to touch on a point you mentioned,
Yeah.
I read, or I listened to Matthew McConaughey's book last year when it came out.
Right.
Brilliant book. He talks about his hair specifically as a point, like there's a chapter on it. Now, I don't know how I feel about this because I'm still skeptical. He still refuses that he's had a hair transplant. Now, he also plays it down to use this other product. It's not Regain. It's along those lines. It's one of them.
Right.
But basically, he says he was losing his hair. He was getting a bit of slack because he was entering Hollywood. So he went away, started using this, shaved his head for that movie, did Reign of Fire. They were like, we wanted someone with long hair, like it's post-apocalyptic. And he was like, I feel like my character would have a shaved head. And all of a sudden, he's a gorgeous hairline. Whether it's wizard juice that he rubbed in his scalp or he got a secret hair transplant and paid someone never to say it, kudos to him, he dealt with it. If he got a hair transplant and is too ashamed to talk about it, I'm not mad at him, but I wish he felt comfortable enough to talk about it because
Yeah, man.
as soon as I booked it in, as soon as I told my mates, as soon as I started talking about it, when I got it done, if I didn't talk about it, I'd feel a little uncomfortable about it now still. You know, like that, the shame, it's the secret. I feel like I'd still be carrying a different insecurity about it, you know? Will someone notice if I have a hair transplant? You know?
Yeah.
But like, best thing I did was talk about it. And something you mentioned there was about your friends going to the pub, sitting there. Is it a topic of conversation? Do you ask them about it? I'm kind of lucky in a sense that I'm comfortable enough to talk about my insecurities. Like, I've no problem about it. Like, I was losing my hair. There was times when it was a joke, it might have gone a little too far, and I might have got a bit of teasing. Like, this is my closest mates. I've like 6-7 lads that are the lads, you know.
Yeah.
They're my best mates. So it was kind of like, I have a problem with my hair loss, and they'd be like, will you stop? Or they'd turn like, how's the panel spot today? You get out to the pub and they'd be like, let's see it. I was like, what? And they'd be like, let's see it. I was like, I'm not dipping my head sitting over a pint. We were talking about, like, what's the story with match, football, work week, and they'd be like, let's see the back of your head. And then I felt a bit silly. I was like, right, this is the circus act. So you dip your head. But at the same time, I don't fault them for it now, because if it was anyone else, I wouldn't have done it. But because I felt comfortable enough to still dip my head because they were my best mates, it was like bullying, it was teasing, it was stuff like this. But I remember when I told them I was getting a hair transplant, and I told them that it was a real problem, they all apologized to me first of all, and I was like, I don't need an apology because you're my best friends. I understand, like, and it's that real lad culture, the teasing, the slagging, and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
for some people, it's going to be a serious problem, and I know that. But I was lucky that I was able to be secure enough to realize that it's not an attack on me personally. These are my best mates. When my mate got chubby, we poked at him and called him chubby, and he lost. He had a pandemic glow up, right? My mate Glenn, he went from like a 6 to a 10. He grew this beard that he never had as well. He's a babe, absolute prick. Shout out Glenn, the post-pandemic glow up, you know. But like, when I told him, and it was funny because I was kind of like, do I post this on social media? I did, right? I had a big post about it, and it was soppy and it was cringy, but it was the right thing to do, I think, for myself, because I was like, I'm not gonna magically turn up to one in the pub one day to someone and them to be like, hair's looking good there, what's going on? I was like, no, this is a stigma. There's something weird about losing your hair as a fella, so talk about it. So I put up a big post.
Yeah,
so I got apologies. I got a, you didn't need it, you look great, fair play. But then I remember what was interesting, and it's something you might expect in this. I think you said that the secret listeners to this topic. I had lads on Instagram and social media who I haven't spoken to since school 10 years ago, who who wasn't really close to, write to me and ask me a million questions. I don't know how many lads wrote to me.
Yeah, man.
Just because I was willing to put it up, and they are obviously crying out for someone to talk about it.
Yeah.
And like, obviously Jim got the opportunity when he saw that I had it done. This is a great opportunity for put it on a proper platform rather than just an Instagram post with a couple of hundred followers. But like, I couldn't believe the response I got. You know, I think the response socially to my hair transplant was better than probably the results of my hair transplant, which is funny, but it's so much better that way. Honestly, I really think it was a better result than I could have asked for.
Darragh, I've massive respect for you for being so open about it and addressing the fact that there is a stigma, and then you wanted to address the stigma and address the elephant in the room. I do want to just quickly go back to this point that Seb was trying to bring about self-esteem, about you mentioned before how you wish you could bald gracefully like that guy, like your interpretation of that guy, like he's fine with his hair. Can I ask, was there something in you that goes, right, I'm insecure about my hair, but obviously I've kind of two ways of dealing with this. I've the external thing, the thing that's giving me the insecurity, or I have the internal thing, which is I place certain value of myself on this particular area in my head, or I feel judged, or I will be judged by this. Maybe I can address this also. And I wonder, was there anything that helped you in that regard? Like, because also I don't want to come across as someone who thinks like, oh yeah, like if you've a quote unquote flaw that you should, just mosey on through and just accept it, because I know it's difficult. It's really difficult. Like, I have insecurities that I'm trying to get over with it, and it's difficult. Like, it's a daily process. But I wondered, was there anything that you did in tandem with the hair transplant?
I didn't. I think there was a point when I got to realizing not how bad it was, but how significant my hair loss was, that I couldn't help but talk about it and be open. And I took the making the jokes with a very serious conversation as well. So like, if I was making the joke about it, I'd also turn around and be like, yeah, I can say it, but you can't say it because you're bullying me. Or like, now this is again to my mates. So like, I think talking about it, because I was very open about it with my girlfriend, because it's an identity thing, as you said, self-esteem thing. To the person you're closest with in a relationship, your partner, you want to feel attractive.
Yeah, man.
But I knew that bald spots aren't stereotypically attractive. There's women out there attracted to bald men. We know that. Bruce Willis, babe. You know what I mean? Jason Statham, babe.
Yeah.
It's a thing. But I know having a bald spot, I said this a couple of weeks ago actually to a friend of Nicole's. I was like, I'd walk down the stairs in front of her, and I knew she could see it, and I hated it. I hated every second of it. I'd deliberately walk down the stairs behind her, or if I was walking down my stairs, I'd grab a hat before I did, because you want to feel comfortable with it. You want to feel attracted to the person. So while I was dealing with my hair loss, before I got it done, before I got the hair transplant, while I was using Regain products, oils, you name it, magic rub, shampoos, I was talking about it. I was telling the people closest to me that I was struggling with it. And that was probably what got me along so far. Because if I didn't say it to Nicole, she'd be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you stopping halfway down the stairs and standing behind me? why are you wearing a hat? We're going
Yeah.
to a restaurant. But she knew that I was wearing a hat because I was uncomfortable. I go out for a game of golf with the lads, I wouldn't not wear a hat because I couldn't put sun cream halfway through my hair. And I turn around, or I again the whole time just tell the people around you that you're uncomfortable with it if it's a thing. Like it doesn't have to be a joke.
Yeah.
And obviously you don't want to be going out everywhere with someone and they're saying, "Oh, I can't do that because I'm insecure about something." But like, I guarantee you, if you went out with a friend and they said, "This is the reason I'm behaving strange," you'd be like, "Okay, cool, whatever, let's go."
Yeah.
You know?
100%.
"Oh, I'm gonna wear my
Yeah,
t-shirt
that's
into the pool because I'm insecure about my body. Couldn't give a bollocks. Let's go swimming."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man. It's a big deal that point that you made about like with your partner. That's a big deal, you know, because I know, and it sounds stupid because you know, like obviously, the reason you're with your partner is much more than purely physical attraction.
Yeah.
But like and I've asked Louisa in like a kind of a jokey way. Louisa's my like long term girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And I've asked in like a jokey way, kind of, to like not to make it like a serious kind of question, because I feel like the question is so silly.
Would
And
you
I know
love
what
me
her
if I'm
answer's gonna
bald?
be anyway. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you just do it in like you just ask it in like a silly way, like, "Oh, would you love me if I'm bald?"
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like "Oh, I'm just making a joke of it," and I know that she still would. Of course, she would. Fuck me
Yeah.
if she didn't. Then like I'd be like, I'm with the wrong girl
Yeah.
here. But it is that thing of like kind of you didn't sign up for this.
No.
Like when we got together when I was 16,
Yeah.
17, I had a full head of hair. Do you know what I mean? Whatever, and like you didn't sign up to the fact that. The chances are, unless I get a hair transplant, I am going to be as bold as a cue ball,
Yeah.
and there's nothing I can do about that. And it's like, are you happy with that? Because like, I've had even thoughts of like, fuck, if we get married, I better do the transplant before we get married. So at least like, even if the transplant goes to shit afterwards, at least in the pictures for that one day, do you know what I mean? You can look back on it and it hasn't ruined Louisa's day because I'm up to the significant, like I'm as attractive as she is on that day, rather than she's like walking around looking beautiful with a fucking troll.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you know
yeah.
what I mean?
No, I
like,
get
it's
it.
these little things and it is
It's nearly a
stupid,
question
man,
though.
because
You
you know
find
really.
it's kind of like you're asking them because you're asking yourself, like, am I going to be comfortable bald?
Yeah, man.
Are you going to love me when I'm bald? But am I going
Yeah.
to love me when I'm bald? You know,
Yeah.
I think
100%.
God bless Stephen Donnelly. He doesn't have a good shaped head. That's a concern I had too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Like there's jokes about him having a head. I was like, oh god, what shape head? I thought I had a real square head. Like I'd get my hair cut, and
Yeah.
I'd be tight, and I was like, oh my god, I've got like an Arnold Schwarzenegger shaped head. But I don't. I've quite a round head. I'm grand. I've a bit of a lump at the back. But
Yeah.
again, now I'm there. I don't care. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
to
yeah.
the point of not caring about it was probably the hardest bit. So I've done, like I said, I've done the products, I've done the hair transplant, and now I was a little dissatisfied with my results, but I also don't have great quality hair. That's a significant point that I found out when I went. They tell you about the quality of your hair. They're like, you've quite fine hair, you've weak hair, you're fair, you're blonde, this kind of thing. They play factors into it. You know what I mean? Like you're quite dark in color,
Okay.
so if you were to get it done, and you might
Yeah.
have more coarse hair around the side of your head, like even the hair on the side of my head is quite fair and light. You know? All
Right.
these things play factors. But it
Yeah,
wasn't
man.
until I went through all these things and then shaved my head. I went to the barbers and I said to this man that I've had a hair relationship with for years, like he's someone I was always open with because you're standing behind me, you can see it. I can hear my bald spot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He was like
Yeah.
he was like, Are you sure you want to shave it? I was like, yeah, let's go. So it's there's a self-esteem thing. There's an attractive thing. It's your image. It's a big part of everything you think until it's not.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that because like for viewers or listeners who are listening to this but on YouTube and they obviously can see you, they're probably going, man, this guy spent $5,000 on a hair transplant and he's gone and shaved his head. Like, kind of seems counterintuitive there. But I wonder, like, you said that you were kind of a bit dissatisfied with your results, but being in the place that you are now, like mentally and physically, like aesthetically, are you happy that you went through the hair transplant like ordeal, or are you kind of like, actually, if I had known what I know now, this, that, and the other, in my particular circumstance, with, like you said, the fair hair and the blonde hair and so on and so forth, I probably would have saved that $5,000 for my move to Canada, for example. Or
Best
whatever.
money I've ever spent. Honestly,
Yeah.
100%. And if I had a
That's
magic,
reassuring to hear.
if I could go back in time,
And Darragh, can I ask,
yeah.
the moment where you decided to shave your head was,
Sorry, I lost you there. I'm back. You were going to ask me something, Jim?
sorry,
Yeah, so
sorry, Darragh, do you want to continue and then I can ask the
Yeah,
question
I was just going to
after?
say, like, if I had to go back and ask myself if I do it again, I'd still do it again. You know? Now, I don't know if I will do it
Yeah.
again because there's follow-up procedures and there's
Yeah.
second hair transplants. There's an actor, I can never remember his name, but I think he's had 12 hair transplants. Now, obviously, he's financially secure
Wow.
enough to do that. You know, but that's a big
Yeah.
deal.
yeah, man, that's 60 bags in hair.
Yeah, now that's 60 bags now. It wasn't always that. Like, I spoke to my managing director in work about losing it. He's thinning on top. Now, he's in his early 60s. But he said, I remember going to talk about a hair transplant. It was 15 grand in Dublin. You know, the price obviously is coming down, so it's more accessible. I know people who went 5 years ago and it was between 8 and 12 grand. You know?
Okay.
So, like, money is a big factor in it. And I know, like, I've talked to lads now and I'm like, look, I'm not going to tell you it's easy. I'm not going to tell you it's cheap. It's €5,000. I don't know what your situation is. But for me, 5 grand's a lot of money. I think for a lot of lads our age, 5 grand's a lot of money. You know? I don't think there's a lot of people that 5 grand isn't a lot of money to. You know?
No.
So, yeah.
And Darragh, can I ask, that moment when you decided to shave your head after getting the hair transplant, was that kind of a recognition or like a new level of self-esteem for yourself, where new confidence in your own self, where you said, yeah, I've got the hair transplant, I do feel better about myself, and because of that, because I've touched that or felt that new security within myself, I can shave the head?
I was nervous as fuck because I made the decision the night before, like kind of midday the day before. I was in work. It was a Friday, and I was like, I think I'm gonna shave my head tomorrow. I'm booked into the barbers. I book into my barbers like every third Saturday anyway. You know what I mean? And I was just like, I think I'm gonna shave my head tomorrow. Like, I said it to myself, and I said it out loud, and I said it to Nicole, and then I said it to my sisters, I said it to my mom and dad, I said it to a few lads in work, and they were like, really? And I was like, yeah, and I was like, they're like, why? You got a hair transplant? I was like, that's not, they're two completely different things. Me shaving my head has nothing to do with the fact that I've had a hair transplant. I had a hair transplant because I was losing my head. I'm shaving my head now because I don't want to worry about my hair anymore. So they're two very different things. And I went down to, and as I said, I went down to my barbers and I said to my barbers, today's the day. Because I'd made jokes and I'd asked them 1,000 times, like you said, your barber or your mate that works in a salon, every lad goes in and asks the question. I went in and I was like, right, Al, shout out to Al, my barber. I don't know if I'm going to be going back because I started shaving my head, so it's been a beautiful ride. I might pop back for a little trim up someday. But like, I've been going to Al for maybe 5 years, you know what I mean? Devastating end to a relationship. But like, I went in and I was like, right, today's the day, and he goes, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. Now he knows I've talked about it on and off. He knows I'd had the hair transplant. I went back to him and he was like, how do I cut this now that you've had a hair transplant? And I was like, let's do it slow and let's do it together, brother, you know? So like, he held my hand and we cut my hair. No, but he went in, he goes, right, we'll go long, we'll go like a 5. And I was like, I kind of want to go short. And he goes, let's do the 5. So he was looking after me the whole time. So he gave me the 5 and he gave me the fade, and I was like, this looks terrible. Let's go tighter. And he gave me the 3, and I was like, and he goes, do you want a 1 all over? And I was like, yeah. And he kind of went, then you should have said, let's go for a 1 all over. And he shaves my head. I was like, now we're talking. Now I look how I want to look. You know what I mean? And I walked it.
Did he charge you for 3 haircuts?
No, in fairness, he didn't. He only in fairness, a razor is cheaper than a standard haircut, so I actually paid less than I used to pay. But it's pretty funny because I went. It was like this moment, like it was a relief. It was like he's just shaved off this mountain of anxiety, this mountain of insecurity. No, I looked at the mirror and I was like, God, I'm not sure about this. I'm bald. I look weird. I look like a thump. But then, like, that went away. And the first thing I did was I went out to my car. I put on my sunglasses. I put on music, and I took a picture. I took a selfie. I sent it to my family, my girlfriend, and my mates. I didn't say a single thing. I just went bang. I couldn't wait to show people. I was just like, and everyone was obviously so sound. My mates, there was one message I think came in. It was like, "Oh, so you did it, fair play," because no one gave a fuck other than me, right? My girlfriend obviously was
Yeah,
like, "Oh
man.
my god, you look amazing." I think I went straight over to her house, and she was
And
nothing
she was
but
like, Darragh, get over here.
yeah. She was like, "God damn." No, she was like, she was so like just so sweet about it, you know. She was like, "I love it."
Yeah.
She didn't falter, she didn't waver. She might not have liked it the first time she saw it. She might have been like, ugh, but she didn't even let on. Obviously, she was being supportive. I went home, and everyone was like, "You look great. God, you're lucky you're handsome. God, you're lucky you're tall as well because you carry it so well." And they were like, "We can see it. You see it in his shoulders. You just look better. You look healthy. You look happier." And I couldn't, like, I felt it. I felt so much better. And it could be the fact that my hairline's a little bit better than
No,
it was. Maybe if I had to shave my head when I did, I wouldn't have
yeah.
liked it as much. I don't know. I'll never know because I did it the way I did it.
Mm.
So I wouldn't change anything I've done regarding the hair transplant. And that
Yeah.
moment of getting it done was so nerve wracking because I think my barber was happy that I thought about it. You know, I could have shaved myself here in my room and hated it. But I did it. I think I did it the right way. I made the decision the
Yeah.
day before. I told people about it. I talked to them about it. I got their feedback. I had other people ask me, "Am I sure?" You know, nearly to say, if I can convince you that I'm sure, I'll convince myself I'm sure. So I went. I said to my barber. He was happy.
Yeah.
We did it the right way. I'll probably never look back.
Yeah, man. I've got like a kind of like a parallel story. I remember at uni one morning, I woke up and like my hair was just fucking all over the gaff, and I was like, Jesus. And I literally, I hadn't had mine was a bit different to yours. It wasn't premeditated or anything, but that morning I just woke up and I saw my hair, and you could see like where it was thinning and where like because obviously I hadn't. You just woke up and I just like literally sat up and I just saw myself in the mirror, and I was like, nah, we're getting rid. And I went straight to the barber's and I just went one all over, and it was so funny because he did it, and then he was like, "You look like Brad Pitt," and I was like, "Yeah, fucking trust me, I know I don't look like Brad Pitt, bruv. Like you don't have to tell me lies. You can say it looks alright, but there's nothing in this world that will make me look like Brad Pitt." But do you know what? Do you know what it was? And like I didn't mind it, and like you said, I'm quite lucky. I've got a nice little round head, so the head shape was all good and stuff. But what started to peeve me, two things. One's very specific to me is that I have two like I don't have moles anywhere on my body, but where I do have moles are on my head. So then when you cut the hair like here and here, so when you do a one all over, then you can see those moles. And then the second thing was I was like, man, if I just want like I want like the style that Jim has, for example. But like I just know that the longer I grow my hair, the worse it looks. So I always have to have a short back and sides because if it starts to get any longer than that, it just
Yeah.
looks terrible basically. And it just like that's when the thought of a hair transplant started to really kind of lay root because I was like, I should be able if I want to fucking have Jim's haircut, or if I want to like get a V, or if I want to have a mullet, like I should be able to make those decisions rather than like have my haircut dictated to me because of the hair that I have. If you know what I mean. And that's where I started to think about having a hair transplant. And I wanted to, before we let you go, I wanted to ask because there'll be people who are listening to this and they've probably gone through all the steps that we've spoken about, but they're probably their last big hang up on whether to really go for it or to kind of stick with the status quo is the actual procedure. And no more philosophical kind of let's talk about how we felt and stuff, but the actual going in, what happens, how did like physically, how does it feel when they're doing the business and they're taking it out with the FUE and all that gubbins? How does it feel the next day? Because I've seen pictures where like blokes' faces are just bloated and they look like they've been stung by 1,000 wasps. Then you've got the scabs and all that. Like how? Like just talk me
Uh,
through that process.
so the process on the day, so the day of, it is, you know what you're going in for. I woke up, I had a little bit of breakfast, nervous, heart in
Yeah,
your mouth. Went in, you meet them. Now I went to a clinic in Dublin here. They were amazing. They were so sound. I was on WhatsApp to a guy the whole time before that, leading up, talking to him, asking him loads of questions, and I had him on WhatsApp then for like 6 months afterwards. But I went in, I met him, I met the team. They bring you in. They're like, "Hey, you getting on? Let's draw your hairline on." So the first thing you went in, they give you like a cup of tea, and they come in with a marker, two people, and they draw a hairline on. They're like, we don't want it to be too unrealistic. I was like, right, and they were like, we're not going to
Yeah.
bring your hairline down into your forehead. They were like, we just want to round off what you have. I was like, that makes perfect sense.
Mm.
And then, but actually, like I said this earlier, I wasn't so insecure about my hairline, more so the back. But they were like, right, we're going to do like 4,500
Yeah.
hairs, 4,500 hairs. And I was like, yeah, primary at the back of the crown. And they were like, yeah, yeah. So we're going to do 1,500 here, 1,500 here, these are like in the eggs, and then 1,000 at the crown. I was like, but my hairline's bad? I was like, but it's the back of my head. And they were like, no, no, this would be like an all-over coverage. But I kind of settled into that really, really quickly. So they draw it on, and I was like, look, I just really want to stress that I really want to focus on the back. And they were like, okay, Grant, well, look, we'll adjust the numbers. I was like, Grant. No, but they were just telling me that. They were sticking to the plan. I don't know, but they were very open to listening to the fact of how I wanted to look. So they were like, they drew it on. They were like, are you happy? And I was like, yeah, I don't really know. Otherwise, it looks good. Drew the hairline on, and then you go in, you get gowned up, and they ask, I think they tell you the night before, they were like, you can come in and we cut your hair, we can shave just the sides where we're taking it from, or we can shave your whole head, you can shave your whole head, just don't go shorter than a 2. It's a grand. So I went in without cutting my hair, and I sat down, they were like, right, what are we doing? Are we shaving just where we're taking it from, or are we going to shave your whole head? I went, take it all off. So they shaved, gave me like a 1 all over, or 2 all over. And I was like, I remember I was in the room with like 5 women, and they were like, you actually look good. And I was like, I look great. And they were like, now is your last opportunity to stop us. And I went, let me think about this. And I took a selfie, and I sent it to my family, I sent it to my girlfriend. I was like, just so you know, this is how I look. And everyone was like, oh my God, you look unreal, or whatever. I was like, no, look, I'm here, I'm going through it, let's go. So you lay back in the chair, and the single worst part of the entire procedure happens right then, because they pump you with anesthetic, and it's like 40 needles into your head, and it burns like a motherfucker. I'm not going to sweeten this up at all. It's the only bad bit. It burns. I don't know what it is. I've had local anesthetic before. It didn't hurt, but when they did it into my scalp, it just hurt. Right? Now it doesn't hurt for long. It's like 3-4 seconds per injection, but it's like okay. But it's nothing like you wouldn't get through. That's the only discomfort. Then your head is so numb. They give you like 2 Valium, and you are just away with the fairies for the day. Now you're in your senses, but you were sitting there. I didn't have music. I didn't have earphones. I didn't watch anything. I stared at the ceiling tile for like 7.5 hours. Like, just out of it. And no, like I said, I was with it the whole time. I was having a bit of conversation with them, and I didn't feel anything, but I felt it. It's so weird, right? So obviously what they do first is they extract the hairs, so you can't feel the actual cutting, but you can kind of hear it. And it's like, do you ever have like a numbness or like pins and needles and you kind of touch it? You can't feel it, but you know the sensation's there, so you can sense that when it's happening. So that takes a while. That's 4,500 individual hand cuts out of your head.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're so out of it that you don't give a bollocks, but at the same time you're very aware of it. So then what they do is they kind of put them on these like wet tissues, and then they put them in like a refrigeration unit, and then they're like, okay, do you want to take a break? You're like, yeah. So they give you like a biscuit and like a cup of tea, and you're like, okay, yeah, grand. And then like, just obviously don't touch anything, so you kind of sit up and you kind of stretch out, and then they're like, right, we're going to do the holes where we're going to put the new hairs. I was like, okay. I wasn't really sure what the procedure was, so I sat down. They kind of, I think they flipped me over and they did the crown first. So what they do is they literally, like Swiss cheese, they cut out these little 1mm holes. They just take skin out of like bare space in the back of your head where there's no hair. Cut them out and you feel, like, again, same sensation. You can hear it. It's like a little prick, little burst. It's weird, but you don't care. It's not that invasive. But again, they do that 4,500 times, so it's slow. And they do it by hand. Like, there's 5 of them in the room. There's 2 of them working at a time. Then they take a break because they're all stiff, and then they go again. Then they flip you over and they do the front, and then they give you another little break. And I think I went out. They covered me up, and I went out and I made a video call to Nicole off my nut. Took a load of other selfies, and then I went back in, and they were like, right, we're going to do the implantation. So then they just start putting these little hairs in the holes, and again for like a couple more hours. And I went on. I went in there early. I can't remember if it was like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. But I didn't. I got picked up. I literally. They finished. They wrapped up my head. They sat me up. I walked down the stairs and I went into the car. Like the finishing procedure is pretty quick. They're like, right, you're done. You can go home. So they wrapped up my head, and I went outside. My sister picked me up and she brought me home. And I remember I went home and I was like, oh god, I can't move. I was just real stiff. So you get a bit of a stiff neck, but the drugs kind of wear off and you're kind of much more with it and stuff like that. But then when it's healing for like 10 to 14 days, you have to sleep kind of upright, no head in the pillow. So I had like rolled up towels, I had pillows behind me. I kind of packed myself up. I slept in a chair one night. I didn't sleep a whole lot for the first couple of nights because you're so paranoid. But like the worst part is kind of like those couple of nights sleep. So I took 5 days. I took 2 days off work and then rang my boss and was like, I need more time. I'm not able to come in. I haven't slept. So I took 5 days off work. I got it done on a Friday or a Monday. I took the week off work, and then after like 2 weeks, you kind of just. I was sleeping on like nappy pads, and like covering my hair in disinfectant, sleeping on nappy pads, and then you kind of just become a little bit more comfortable, and you kind of ease back into it, and you do end up sleeping. You can see its healing process, you know. It's like a normal wound, but they give you this list of instructions: how to wash your hair, when to wash your hair, what products to use, pour warm water over your head. Like there's a bit of work in it, you know. You have a bit of work to do with it too. But like I said, I'm glad I did it, and it's worth a couple of bad night sleeps. It's worth the weird discomfort of knowing what they're doing to your head, and it's worth the money, because if it works, it's the. I've seen it. I know 2 people, and both one of them got it done here, one of them got it over in Turkey, and I know that's probably a question you want to ask, whether I'd consider Turkey. Yeah, I did. I just felt a little bit more comfortable going to somewhere closer to home so I could go back and give out to someone if it didn't work. But like, both of theirs worked out unbelievably, and I know how happy they are with it. I'm not, like I said, I'm a little dissatisfied with the results, but I'm not dissatisfied with the situation I'm in now, you know. So like, it's a little uncomfortable. There's a little bit of work you have to do yourself post-op, but that's the worst bit of it, is probably the start when they do the anesthetic injection.
Yeah. I see, because I think I was kind of more worried about like that, those like 2 weeks or whatever, like just pure paranoia of like, oh fuck, like I can't let anything touch my head because otherwise I'm just gonna like mess up this
I don't know if you can see, so
I've just done.
My bedroom in my house is in the attic, right? So that's the ceiling. I'm 6'3". The room in here is 5'10", so I can't stand up straight in my own bedroom at all. I haven't been able to since I was like 17. Right? I'm surprised I don't have a hump, but like trying to move around my room was a fucking nightmare. And I remember like on day 4, I smacked my head off the roof right in the middle of my crown, and it was the closest I've ever come as a sober adult to shit in my pants. And I ran, I screamed, and I ran through my house. I was wearing so you can't pull a t-shirt over your head, so make sure you've loads of shirts or like button up pajamas. So I bought this pair of like boy in the stripe pajamas, blue button up pajamas, right? And I was wearing them for a couple of nights. And I remember I ran through the house in these pajamas screaming, ah, ah, and I ran to my sister, who's like the natural born carer in my family, and I was like, I hit my head, I hit my head, I hit my head. She was like, it's fine, it's fine. And I was like, you have to look at it. And she goes, okay, take a deep breath. So I kind of calmed down. She looked and she was like, no, it's fine. And I was like, but I haven't felt my head in 4 days. I can feel it now. And she was like, it's fine, nothing's gone. She was like, I thought like I'd scuffed it and like I was going to have like a streak mark in the middle of my hair transplant.
Yeah.
Like, do you know when like you slide tackle someone on a bit of grass and you have that like just ripped up? I thought I was going to have that. I was like, great, I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have scar tissue and no hair in one part. But nah, like day 4 I bumped my head off the ceiling. Not a bother.
So, and so man, so that was a really useful tip you gave there about the shirts. So are there any other like kind of real practical little tips, like whether it's for the sleeping or the shirts, like you just said, where someone who's going through this maybe hasn't thought of that, the aftermath kind of thing, where you go, listen, do this, do this,
so
do
obviously
this, don't do this.
You can't pull that over your head, and you won't want it either. I think I wore shirts and button-ups for like 30 days, like a good month, and zippies. I wore zippies with no t-shirt. Zippy hoodies, perfect example. That and shirts, stuff like that. For sleep, I was told sleep in a chair, but like that's so fucking difficult. Loads of pillows behind your lower back, keep yourself upright, and rolled up towels, keep your head off the pillow. Like I said, nappy pads, and I bought Assassin's Creed Valhalla the day I got it, and it was the best thing I did because I didn't sleep a whole lot. I didn't leave my bedroom, and I played like, God no, 200 hours of Assassin's Creed Valhalla to keep me occupied.
You know what? That sounds like I know when you originally said that, that might sound like a kind of trivial little joke there, but that actually, I can imagine that being a great tip. Like that was something that I definitely wouldn't have thought of before doing that, but now will definitely be on the list of things to buy and get prepared before I, if I do actually finally take the plunge.
Because like I thought 2 days off work and I'd be back in work. No way. Like you can't get rained on. You can't. Okay, so it was weird. Another thing, important thing is, they say you're not supposed to get sweaty in your head, obviously for like 2 months. So I had just like during lockdown, I'd taken up running, and I think Jim, you talked about it in one of your early podcasts about taking up running and doing distance running and stuff like that. I'd be very interested outside of this to find out how you got on with that because I started the same thing during lockdown, got real into it, and then I got a hair transplant. And I was told I couldn't run, so I sat in my bed for like 2 weeks. And then I couldn't play football. I joined a football team and there was training intermittently throughout that period with lockdown lifts ups and stuff like that. But like I couldn't run all this sort of stuff and I was like, I can't sweat. But then I remember I got to like 2 months and I was texting that guy, my consultant, and I was like, can I run? And he was like, nah, it's not a great idea. And I was like, why? I was like, are the hairs just gonna pop out of my head? And he goes, no, it's just cleanliness. He was like, you've new pores, you've new skin developed in your head. Like, I was like, can I go for a light jog? And he kind of knew I was fighting him on it, and he was like, yeah, go. It did nothing. I got sweaty. I went home. I showered. I was delicate. But like, if they say wait 2 months, wait 2 months. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, find a way to keep yourself entertained while you're healing up. And big things, obviously, support system. If you know you're going to be on your own, it's going to be a little bit difficult. If you live on your own, or you're going to be away. If you go to Turkey, bring a pal. Because I know a guy that went to Turkey and he brought a pal because he was there for 4 days. My girlfriend's little brother went and got it done. He went to Turkey on his own. I don't know how he got on. I don't know how he managed because it's not easy to clean yourself. Like I had my sister using a Pyrex jug or a gravy boat to pour warm water over my head for the first like week.
Wow.
I couldn't do. I just couldn't coordinate my body to do it.
Your sister pulled in a huge
like honestly, I think the biggest part about hair transplants, losing your hair, or honestly any insecurity that I've faced is a support system. And I couldn't speak highly enough about mine.
Yeah.
My sister was like a live-in nurse. My mates were they were fun to tease me, and they were apologetic and supportive when I got it done. They were commending me on the fact that I was willing to get it done. People wrote to me on Instagram. My girlfriend's mates were like, oh my god, that was so nice. You look great, blah, blah, blah. Like, support system 101. Find yourself good people. Surround yourself with good people. And you can do anything you want.
Perfect.
And Nicole's obviously a pillar. Shout out to Nicole.
Nicole is a pillar, yeah. She was a great advocate for going to get it done because she knows how much my hair loss bothered me. So she was like, she was a bit more ruthless. She was like, does your hair loss bother you? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, why don't you get a hair transplant? And I was like, all right. And my mom as well, right? So kind of like one of the big reasons I got it done was my mom got sick in November 2019. She had a stroke, and she was a big advocate for me to then turn around and say, if you have an opportunity to do something like this, do it. Don't wait until life passes you by or you can't do it. Or like, she almost bullied me into doing it. She was like, if you don't have a fucking appointment booked by Friday, I'm gonna kill you. I was like, right, okay. So I remember I rang and I booked one. Like, first person I told her, I was like, ma'am, right, I booked it. She was like, good. That's all I wanted. All right. So like, having the right people around you is a big thing. So as you said, Seb, if you do go through it, you don't. It's your decision.
Yeah.
I'll follow you on Instagram. James is my number. Pass on if you still have questions after this anytime. And I don't know, like anyone listening, find me on Instagram, send me a message. I don't care who you are, what your question is, if it's related to a hair transplant or not. I'll try and reply.
Perfect, man. Perfect. Well, we'll definitely put all your details in the show notes for anyone who's listening, and maybe we forgot to ask a question that you guys had kind of pressing. But man, for me, you've answered all my questions, Jim. I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to.
I just thought we'd end it how we usually end it, man.
Yeah, man.
We haven't done this in a while.
Yeah, true.
Darragh, I mean, you mentioned running, you mentioned the strong support system, but we usually ask our guests, how do they look after their mental health?
How do I look?
You know, day to day.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you haven't covered on?
I don't know. I think my big. I think my last point there was surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
Running obviously is good for clearing the head. Exercise, I think that's like mental health 101. Everyone tries it, whether it's for them or it's not. Everyone should try it. If it works, it works. But yeah, support system. There's someone out there willing to listen to you about anything. You know? Yeah, support system, 100%. I try, like I've done journaling, I've done exercise, all that sort of stuff. It's the people you surround yourself with that'll make anything the easiest.
Fantastic. And I hear Papa Potts is a king in the kitchen.
Oh, Jim, you haven't lived. Absolute dynamite. He's like he's like our very own Nigella Lawson. Is that your woman's name?
Yeah, that's her name.
The microwave.
Darragh, tell Mick I'm due an invitation soon.
He asks me about you all the time.
Does he?
That's not even a joke, and he asks about your dad all the time.
Same with my dad. My dad's always asking about you and your dad.
That's hilarious, man. No, definitely. I'd love an opportunity to cross paths with the 2 years with my dad. Like it'd be stellar.
We'll have to try to get that organised.
Definitely.
Well, thanks so much, man. And I just want to say I'm real happy for you, man. Like, because I can't imagine. Like, I mean, you expressed how difficult it was, but obviously you only know when you experience it. But I'm so happy that you feel a bit lighter, more confident, and
I am gorgeous, James, and I only realised it when I shaved my head after I got a hair transplant. I had to do it. You have to take these steps to realise how damn good looking you are. And I'm blessed that I'm so gorgeous.
I'm gonna sound like your man, but I always thought you were handsome. I always said that to Nicole. It's like, how is a handsome individual? You better keep him. Hold on to him.
Listen, I hope you've told Seb how you came back into my life that day, that random day out in Dunleary.
I never told Seb the story, actually.
That's the story you and Seb have to share.
Okay, I'll fill him in.
Perfect. I look forward to it.
Brilliant.
Thanks a million.
But yeah, thanks a million, Darragh. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate obviously having me on. It means a lot to me, and it's a good chance for me to tell my story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man, of course.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hi guys, thank you for listening to the podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review if you haven't already. Every review helps us climb the podcast charts so that even more of you can listen to our amazing guests. We really appreciate the support. Remember to tune in next week. But until then, keep safe and have a good one.